You know how people say, family is everything. That's funny. Mine is the reason I almost walked out of my own life. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. A custom-designed Varawan gown, a 5-tier cake, a ballroom lit with chandeliers worth more than my first car. My fiancé, Adrian, had spared no expense. But when I walked into the venue, there she was, my half-sister Lily, standing on the stage in my dress, microphone in hand, announcing that the wedding is off. At first, I thought I'd walked into the wrong room. Some cruel mix-up. I froze at the entrance, my best friend Tasha grabbing my arm, gasping. Is that? She whispered. It was. Lily. Lily and I share the same father. Different moms. She's 5 years younger, always the wild one in the family. Trouble in school. Drama on social media. When we were kids, she once cut up my favorite sweater just because I wouldn't let her borrow it. But I never thought she'd do something like this. As I stood there in shock, the entire room slowly turned to look at me. My father sat in the front row. Calm. Not even surprised. And that was the second punch to the gut. Adrian was nowhere in sight. Finally, I snapped out of it and pushed through the crowd. Lily, I said, voice shaking. What the hell are you doing? She didn't even flinch. Saving everyone some time, she said coolly. You're not meant for this life, Mia. You never were. Then she dropped the mic literally and walked off the stage like she was some kind of celebrity. It took me almost 10 full seconds to move again. Tasha grabbed my hand. Do you want me to? No, I said, pulling away. I need to find Adrian. I ran. He wasn't in the groom's suite. Not outside. I finally found him in the hotel lobby, pacing like a man waiting for a verdict. Adrian! I shouted. He turned. And for a second, I thought that he'd look as confused as me. But instead, his face crumpled in guilt. Mia, he said. Where were you? I demanded. Why didn't you stop her? He didn't answer. And that was when I knew. This wasn't just some prank. Something had been planned. It took a full week for me to get the full story. Adrian had known. My own fiancé had known Lily was planning something. Apparently, she'd shown up 2 nights before the wedding, claiming she had dirt on me. That I wasn't the person I pretended to be. Of course, it wasn't true. But Adrian had panicked. Started second-guessing everything. Instead of talking to me, he'd listened to her. By the time I confronted my father, I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. We met at his office. He owned a chain of furniture stores, the kind with cheap leather couches and fake wood tables. I sat across from him, hands clenched in my lap. Why? I asked simply. He sighed. A long, tired sound like I'd asked him what the weather was. Mia. Lily's just a kid, he said finally. She doesn't know any better. She's 23. I snapped. Not 13. He waved his hand like I was overreacting. Don't hold it against her. These things happen. These things? I repeated, voice cracking. You're telling me my own sister impersonated me, ruined my wedding, and you're calling it these things? He wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when I realized. He'd always forgiven Lily for everything. The broken vases. The school suspensions. The social media scandals. I'd thought, maybe naively, that when it came to something like this, something that directly affected me, he'd finally draw a line. But no. I wasn't the favorite. I never had been. I left that office with tears stinging my face. But I promised myself I wouldn't let it break me. Not completely. Weeks went by. I threw myself into work. Moved out of the apartment Adrian and I had picked together. Blocked his number. But the world has a cruel sense of humor. One afternoon, while picking up coffee, I ran into Lily. She was laughing, phone in hand, designer sunglasses perched on her head. When she saw me, her smile didn't even flicker. "Mia," she said like we were old friends bumping into each other. "How's post-wedding life?" I couldn't breathe for a second. "You really don't feel bad?" I said finally. Her lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I saved you," she said. "You'll see it one day." And then she walked away. Just like that. At that point, I knew I couldn't just let it slide. So I did what anyone would. I started digging into Lily's life, her finances, her social circle. And I found something. Turns out, she'd been in trouble. Real trouble. Gambling debts. Credit card fraud. Things my father had covered up, paid off quietly to protect the family name. It made sense. The wedding wasn't just about me. It was about her making sure the spotlight never left her. One night, around midnight, I got a text from an unknown number. "She's not who you think she is." No context. No name. Just that. At first, I thought it was spam. But part of Mestaborn wouldn't let it go. So I texted back. "Who?" The reply came instantly. "Lily." My heart pounded so loud I thought I'd pass out. I stared at the screen, wondering if this was some kind of sick game. But then another text came through. "Meet me. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Central Park Fountain." And against every ounce of better judgment, I decided I would. Because maybe, just maybe, the story wasn't as simple as I thought. Maybe there was more to uncover. I showed up at Central Park at exactly 3 in the afternoon, no makeup, plain clothes, sunglasses on just in case anyone recognized me. I was already feeling a little ridiculous meeting a complete stranger because of a mysterious text. But when I reached the fountain, there he was. A man, maybe early 30s, scruffy beard, plain gray hoodie, hands shoved into his pockets, his eyes flicked up and met mine like he had been waiting. "Are you Mia?" he asked. "Yeah," I said flatly. "Who are you?" He glanced around, then motioned for me to follow. We walked toward a quieter bench. "Name is Eric," he said finally after we sat. "I used to work for your dad." That caught me off guard. "You mean at the furniture stores?" "Not exactly," he said quietly. "I managed some of his off-the-books accounts." I frowned, not understanding. Then Eric pulled out his phone and showed me something. Photos, screenshots, bank transfers. I stared. "Wait, what is this?" "It's your half-sister's debt trail," he said calmly. "Credit cards, gambling sites, wiring money through fake business accounts. Guess who cleaned it all up?" "My dad," I said, the words falling out of my mouth. "Bingo," Eric confirmed. "Your father covered for her for years, not just with family money, but with your name too." "My name?" "Your credit score, business licenses, things she could not get on her own," he said bluntly, and when the debt collectors came close, he leaned back, eyes serious. "Your dad figured the fastest way to make it all disappear was to make sure the golden child," his words, not mine, stayed on top. My stomach turned cold. "So he let Lily ruin my wedding because if you married into a bigger family with more lawyers and more power, someone would have eventually found out," Eric said quietly. "This way it all stayed quiet." Smaller problem. I could not breathe. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked finally. "Because I got tired of cleaning up after rich people who do not care who they step on," he said simply, "and because someone should have told you the truth." For a long time I just sat there. Then I asked one more question. "Why now?" Eric shrugged. "Maybe because I have a sister too," he said, "and I would not want her to think no one had her back." After that I walked home in a daze. The puzzle pieces fit too perfectly. My dad always calling me too emotional when I asked for anything, Lily always getting new things even when no one knew where her money came from. I had been blind. That night I sat on my couch, lights off, staring at the ceiling. And I made a decision. I would not let them keep my life in pieces anymore. The next morning I went straight to a lawyer. His name was Mr. Jacobs, gray hair, sharp voice, and exactly the kind of person who did not flinch at family drama. I laid it all out. The wedding, the debts, the texts. And most importantly, my name being used in things I never signed up for. Mr. Jacobs leaned back, hands steepled. We can file a civil suit, he said quietly. Identity theft, misuse of assets, depending on the paperwork, we might even have a criminal case. I swallowed hard. Would my father go to jail? Possibly, he said, but more likely fines and a court order to repay damages. For a second I hesitated. He was my dad. But then I remembered the way he had looked at me that day in his office, like I was an inconvenience. Let's do it, I said. Things moved faster than I expected. Depositions, bank statements. Lily tried to deny everything until Eric came forward as a witness. That changed the game. The story made local news, not front page, but enough to cause whispers among my father's business partners. My father called me once during it all, just once. Mia, he said, voice tired, please think about what you are doing. I already have, I said quietly. And I hung up. It took months. But eventually a judge ruled in my favor. My name cleared. Lily fined heavily along with my father's businesses. I did not feel triumphant exactly, it was more like a quiet kind of peace. Like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. One afternoon, about 6 months after everything wrapped up, I got another text. From an unknown number again. It said simply, I'm sorry. No name, no explanation. But I knew it was Lily. And instead of anger or hurt, what I felt surprised me. I felt nothing. Just a quiet end to a story I had not asked for. Life moved on. I moved to a new city, smaller place, new job, new friends. Tasha visited sometimes, always bringing wine and way too many snacks. And on one quiet night, sitting on my balcony watching the sunset, she asked me, "Do you miss any of it?" I thought about it. The big weddings, the shiny life. Then I shook my head. No, I said softly, I think I was chasing things that were never really mine. Now I just want things that feel real. That's the only thing that matters now. If you had told me a year ago that my sister would destroy my wedding, that my father would choose her over me, that I would end up starting completely over, I would have laughed in your face. But now, sitting here feeling the breeze on my skin, hearing the city hum around me, I realize something. Sometimes the best thing that ever happens to you looks like the worst thing at first. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out what was really worth holding on to. And I'll hold on to that. For as long as it takes. Of course, here's the continuation of the story in the same emotionally intense and structured style, without special characters or formatting as you requested. A year passed before I heard from my father again. It came as a letter, not a text, not a phone call, but an actual envelope with my name written in his sharp, familiar handwriting. At first I considered throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won. Inside there was a single page. Mia, I do not expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you will understand that everything I did I believed was for the best. I always thought keeping the family together meant protecting everyone, even from themselves. I see now how much I hurt you, and I am sorry. That was it, no excuses, no long explanations. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I did not cry, I did not get angry. I just felt tired. Some things do not get tied up neatly, no matter how much you want them to. One evening months later, while grocery shopping, I turned a corner, and there she was. Lily. She looked different, thinner hair, shorter, wearing plain clothes, like she was trying to disappear. We both froze. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she took a breath and said, "Mia." I stayed silent. She looked down, then back up, her voice smaller than I had ever heard it. "I really thought I was helping." "Helping," I repeated, my voice flat. "By stealing my wedding, by lying." I was angry, Lily said, but it was more than that. She glanced away, eyes shining like she might cry. You always had it all, she whispered. School friends Adrian and I always felt like I was just there. That is not an excuse, I said quietly. I know, she admitted. We stood there in the middle of the aisle, boxed cereal on one side, canned soup on the other. Finally, she asked, "Do you hate me?" I thought about it, really thought. No, I said, not anymore. Surprise flickered across her face. You do not. Hating you would mean I am still carrying it, I said, and I am done carrying things that are not mine. She let out a shaky laugh like she could not believe it. Then she nodded. I do not expect us to be sisters again, she said carefully. We never really were, I replied. Lily winced but nodded again. But I added, that does not mean we cannot try. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she held out her hand. Just coffee, maybe sometime. I hesitated, then took it. Maybe, I said. Walking home from the store that night, I felt lighter than I had in months. The city lights glowed, warm windows lit up like little stars. And I realized something. Closure is not about everything being perfect. It is about finding peace with the mess. Knowing it happened and choosing to keep walking anyway. A few weeks later, I sat at a small cafe near my apartment flipping through a magazine when someone slid into the seat across from me. It was Eric. I almost did not recognize him, clean-shaven, dressed sharper. Eric, I said, surprised. Hey, he said, just in the neighborhood. We chatted for a bit, small things. Then he said quietly, Your sister has been going to meetings. Meetings, I asked. Gambling Anonymous, debt counseling. I felt a twist in my chest, not quite pain, not quite relief. Good, I said softly. We sat in silence for a minute, then Eric asked, So what is next for you? I smiled, for real this time. Honestly, I do not know, I said. But whatever it is, it will be mine. Looking back now, I see everything clearer. The wedding, the lies, the betrayal. They were never about just me. They were about a family trying too hard to look perfect, breaking itself in the process. But I am done pretending. I have my own life now. One built from honesty, from small quiet joys. A morning coffee in peace. A walk by the river with no one to impress. Friends who show up because they care, not because it looks good on a guest list. That is what happiness really is. Not a $1 million wedding. Not a perfect photo. Just real people, real love. Real forgiveness. And most of all, real freedom. Because in the end, the biggest lesson I learned is this. You do not need a perfect family or a perfect past to build a beautiful future. You just need to believe you deserve it. And now, finally, I do.